So if we view adversity as an opportunity where we do face rejection, we do face pain. So we are broken into pieces, heartache, punched in the face, however you want to call it. And these pieces are on the ground. And we have an opportunity to pick up the pieces that we still like about ourselves that serve a higher purpose, because it can still be painful even if it serves a higher purpose. And we get to let go of the pieces that no longer serve us. And Adam, that can be like social constructs of beauty that we don't want to hear anymore. That can be narratives. That can be beliefs we've had in our brain.
Yeah.
That can be parental expectations, cultural, religious, social norms, like all of these aspects of life that force us to bend and break our bodies and souls into restrictive boxes. We can let those go. Those are limiting us.
Yeah.
And when we go through adversity, it's the opportunity for us to molt, to let go of our old skin and to grow into a new skin.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Flow Over Fear podcast, where it is our mission to help you to rise above fear and realize your ultimate potential in leadership and life. I'm your host, Adam Hill, and it is my goal to share with you the human side of high performance. My guests share their experience with fear, anxiety, struggle, challenge, and most importantly, despite all of it, how they rose above it to achieve incredible results. So, if you're ready to rise up, let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Flow Over Fear. I am so glad you're here. We have an awesome show today, and we have an amazing guest. I'm really thrilled for this. I have Joanna Lohman, and she is a keynote speaker, a performance coach who is building a new generation of authentic leaders who redefine success. And let me tell you, she is on the path to inspiring millions of people, if she hasn't already, with her message of overcoming adversity and molting. And we'll get into that in a bit today. She's the author of Raising Tomorrow's Champions and a member of the United States women's national soccer team. And she's the first player in Washington Spirit history to have her jersey retired, honoring her 16-year professional soccer playing career, where she built a platform for social impact. She continues her influence as a human rights activist and sports diplomat. And I'm really grateful to have her here today. Thanks for being with me, Joanna. Good to see you.
Thanks, Adam. I love the laundry list of highlights, and just wait till you hear about all my lowlights. That's what I actually really enjoy talking about more.
Well, I'm glad you said that because I think this show, I really like to highlight amazing people, which you are. We were just talking off screen about that, and but what I like to get into on this show is the human side of really high performance, and there's a lot of that we don't discuss, and I'd really like to get into some of your backstory if you don't mind. What brought you to where you're at today?
Mike Tyson has one of my favorite quotes, Adam, and he says, "Everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face." And my life has been an absolute masterclass in adversity, in getting punched in the face. And I think it's truly made me the human I am today, with a deep level of authenticity and resilience because of the amount of times I've had to pick myself up after falling flat on my face. And I truly call myself a failure expert. And very often in my speeches, in my keynotes, in my leadership workshops, I start by listing all of my failures.
Wow.
I talk about surviving 2 failed professional soccer leagues in the United States. I talk about being one of the last players cut prior to the 2007 Women's World Cup, tearing my ACL in what should have been the best season of my career. I've lost all 3 championship games I've ever played in. I spent seasons where I was on the bench more than I was in the field. And wait for it, I would say I probably made an average of $15,000 a year playing professional soccer. And, you can laugh, but it's not a joke. And that makes the women's national team's journey, struggle for equal pay, that much more significant. And then, Adam, I didn't even touch on my personal challenges. Came out at the age of 21 after being engaged to a man. Yes, this little lesbian was actually engaged to a man and cut off all my hair in 2007, creating what you see now, which is the Joe Hawk. And I'm constantly pushing, defying gender boundaries, getting called sir, getting double takes when I walk into the bathroom. This happened just the other week in the airport. Someone called me sir. So it's a life facing daily resistance from the social constructs that the world places on us. And I'm thriving in that resistance. And I truly believe now that if I'm not pushing boundaries in some sort of way, then I'm not living my life in a way that is fulfilling enough in terms of my own potential.
Yeah. Well, you really are thriving. And I love that you pointed those out, because especially a lot of the, quote unquote failures that you talked about there, I mean, can be reframed into successes. I mean, yeah, losing a championship, but making it to the championship, and getting to that point. But that in and of itself was this act of overcoming adversity, which is amazing. So what is the resilience that you developed? How have you developed that has helped you to continue to push past that adversity and continue to pursue these amazing goals that you're pursuing?
I think, what's so beautiful is that my way of approaching and seeing adversity has truly evolved over my lifetime. And it's something now that I am truly digging deep into, and it's my passion. And I believe that we have the capacity, our superpower as human beings is infinite transformation. The catalyst for this transformation is adversity. It is discomfort. We do not change when we are comfortable. We only change when we challenge the status quo. And amuse me for a second, Adam, as I talk to you about this concept, this revolutionary model that I want to discuss, is the idea of molting. When you think about molting, hopefully you know the scientific term. It's when an animal sheds its feathers or its shell or its skin like a snake. In my brain and my vision, like a Dungeness crab. Okay. So I'm from the state of Maryland. Our state animal is the crab. Let's go. I am a Cancer. Okay. So I'm a crab. And the beauty of a Dungeness crab is that it molts 30 to 40 times in its lifetime. And there are 4 phases to this molting. And when I imagine a crab molting, you have the pre-molting phase, then you have the soft shell phase, then you have the busting, and then you have the hard shell. So you're completely breaking out of your skin and becoming a better version of yourself. You take on a different body shape, you regrow certain limbs, you leave parts of yourself behind that no longer serve a purpose. And you consistently do this, and the stimulus for this is discomfort. Damn, that is so cool in my brain. And let's build a crosswalk, a bridge to the human version of molting, because it's the exact same thing. And I've come up with this really fun acronym, MOLT. Yeah, revolutionary. MOLT. And it's the 4 processes that humans go through when they molt, right? When we shed our skin and we grow into bigger, better versions of ourselves. Because adversity is an opportunity. Fear is an opportunity, like you speak on, right?
Right.
Adversity can so very often be seen as a threat, failure, rejection. It hurts. It's painful. The best parts of life are on the other side of fear. The best parts of life, the real you, are on the other side of adversity, the authentic you. So if we view adversity as an opportunity where we do face rejection, we do face pain, so we are broken into pieces, heartache, punched in the face, however you want to call it. And these pieces are on the ground, and we have an opportunity to pick up the pieces that we still like about ourselves that serve a higher purpose, because it can still be painful even if it serves a higher purpose. And we get to let go of the pieces that no longer serve us. And Adam, that can be like social constructs of beauty that we don't want to hear anymore. That can be narratives. That can be beliefs we've had in our brain.
Yeah.
That can be parental expectations, cultural, religious, social norms, like all of these aspects of life that force us to bend and break our bodies and souls into restrictive boxes. We can let those go. Those are limiting us.
Yeah.
And when we go through adversity, it's the opportunity for us to molt, to let go of our old skin and to grow into a new skin.
That's so huge. Yeah, and I mean that whole idea is just such a it hits me in the right spots because I see so often that we try to please other people with who we become with and maybe limit ourselves to achieve or to achieve what society expects of us, right? And I think that's a challenge a lot of us face, and a lot of the fear that exists within us is our inability to live authentically because we fail to really dig into what's authentic about us, and we feel afraid to even approach it.
Yeah.
So I'd love to explore that a little more of your idea of molting, and maybe get into what the acronym of molt means. Can you get into that a little bit?
You touched on something, Adam, because you are so smart and you delve into these topics every day, that as a human species, we are biologically formed to belong, right? We want that sense of belonging and that sense of community. Social isolation is a danger for us, right?
Yeah.
So that's what rejection is. It's we're isolated. So we're so afraid of that failure because it's essentially a rejection of self. We didn't get what we wanted. We were told we weren't good enough, something. So it's terrifying, right?
Yeah.
To go through that adversity, and it is painful. So people really shy away from it. And what you and I are getting at is that we have to lean into it.
Yeah.
That's actually the catalyst. Adversity is the catalyst for our success. And if we can reframe it through the lens of molting, then it's not as great of a threat. It's just like, I'm #molting. You know what I mean? Like, this is just another time that I'm molting in my life, 30 to 40 times in my lifetime. So this is good for me because I'm growing out of my old skin that's limiting me, and I'm growing into a bigger, better version of myself. And the 4 phases that I've come up with through the molting process, the first is mindfulness. So if I can use an example in my own life, Adam, let's say my coming out story. When I was younger, I had no idea I was gay. And that's going to shock many people because look at me, like I scream gay. And I had no idea I was gay because it was not an option for my identity, Adam. Like no one spoke about it. No one told me I didn't have any role models. So for 21 years of my life, I was a straight woman with long hair who wore skin tight dresses and like fishnet stockings. Like what the hell?
And do you mind if I ask, was that just kind of a society conditioning? Was that just because you weren't given the opportunity to explore it, or how did that show up in your early life?
I would say all of the above.
Yeah.
I would say up until 5th grade, I was a huge tomboy because I think in those early years, you're innocent. You aren't aware of all the pressures that society places upon you, so you don't have to feel limited by them. I distinctly remember in 5th grade having my first pair of Air Jordans, Adam. Like this was revolutionary for me.
Same.
And Air Jordans, right? I was a girl in boys' basketball shoes, but yet it was the first time I felt whole in my own skin. So here was a young woman, a tomboy, like desperate to be accepted for who she was. And I was in 5th grade, top pick at recess, the most popular kid in elementary school, friends with all the boys. I refused to wear a dress. It was fine. And then in 6th grade, it was like society hit me. I got punched in the face.
Yeah.
And I had to sit at a table with girls. I had to buy the color pink of my clothing. I put my Jordans on the shelf. It was sad. And so from 6th grade on, it was like, okay, I have to be this different version of Joe because I'm feeling all these social constructs that I have to conform to because I have to fit in. That's what society says, that you need to fit in. And then when I was 21 and as a senior in college at Penn State University, it was kind of the first time I realized there are other options for my identity. Like, I can be gay. And I started to have feelings for a woman who had feelings for me. And so that first M for MOLT stands for mindfulness. Like we don't know change is possible until we know it exists, right? I always say that if we don't realize an identity exists, it can't be our existence, right?
Right.
So I realized that I could exist as a gay woman. So that was the first piece. And then the O is for the outburst, right? It's the action that stimulates the coming out of the skin. So for me, that was my first experience with a woman. And it was like, I joke, but it's like getting hit by the gay stick. It was just like, bam, you know, I realized that this was the life that I was supposed to live. And with that also comes pain. It also comes potential isolation, right? So it's a little bit scary. And then the L is for let go, let grow. So in the process of molting, you will have to let go of the old version of you. And I say this was the hetero to homo Joe. I had to let go of the hetero Joe. Mm-hmm. And not to sound too dark, Adam, but you have to mourn the death of who you thought you were going to be. Because we all have visions of our life. We all have expectations of ourselves. We have that of our children. We have that of our friends. It could be unconscious. So this involves even your family and your friends. You have to let go. You have to let go of who you thought you were going to be to accept the new version and grow into that person. And that could involve losing friends, losing family members who don't accept the real version of you because people are afraid of what they don't know. They think different is dangerous. So oftentimes people really try to stifle your own growth because it feels safe to them. Mm-hmm. My mom said it herself. It's hard even when you accept it. Because I did a total 180 on my parents. I was engaged to a man, I was dress shopping, and then all of a sudden I was gay. So for them, it takes time to accept this new version because they had a movie playing in their brain. You know, the suburban house, the white picket fence, the 2.3 kids, the wedding, and snap of my fingers, like that was gone. So the let go, let grow phase is, again, it can be very difficult because you're going through some sort of pain. And then the T is for the transformation. And that's when you start to really live as this new version of the bigger, better version of who you are. And you redefine your values and you live with a more focused existence towards your values. And that whole process, Adam, that is the molting process that allows us to take another step towards our authenticity. And I so deeply believe that authenticity is not a destination. You don't arrive there one day. It's an orientation. So it's how you show up every day. And I'm still showing up as my authentic self. And that person is still molting, right? I just had a child, like my wife had our first child. My God, like talk about being punched in the face, right? Yeah. Parenthood of a newborn is being punched in your face every single day. So it's like, I'm still molting and
it doesn't end.
It doesn't end. It doesn't right. end. And so I truly believe now that success is determined by our evolution and not our conclusion. And success is the amount we molt versus the amount we make. And what if we looked at life with that lens of that compassion and that courage and that authenticity? Because when you show up as your authentic self, you are able to see others as their authentic selves, right? You're able to really, I would say, inspire and empower that in other people because you have a comfort in your own skin.
Right. Yeah.
And you can really, I would say, utilize your strengths in all different roles in life because that's the comfort, is that you can show up in different situations and know what that situation calls of you. And maybe it's to sit back and listen. Maybe the next time it's to advocate for yourself. Maybe one time it's just to lend a helpful ear, right? So you're able to really transform a species through that first micro version of your authentic self.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I just gave you a lot to chew on. So what's hitting you?
No, a lot of that is, and I wrote a lot down, and thank you for sharing that, by the way, because I think that's so powerful to hear it from somebody who's been through what you're going through, and especially when we have generations of kids that, and I mean that period between sixth grade that you talked about and 21, that's a long time. There's a lot of growth there. There's a lot of development. There's a lot of that's where people start dating and things like that. And so I know that there's a lot of kids out there that maybe that are struggling with that sense of identity and knowing where they're at. How if you were to talk to any of those kids now, and I know you do in schools, how would you approach them to look at that and objectively think about who they are, who they're becoming, and how to live more authentically?
Such a great question. And I think it starts with having the right role models and understanding that there are infinite at this point options for identity.
Mm-hmm.
So it's having the courage to be able to see these options, explore these options, when so very often in the media, we see like one version, the heteronormative version of who we can be.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to encourage the young listeners, you can be so much more than what society shows you. You can be so much more. And that starts with the courage of exploration of who could I be? And it's not a clean process, Adam. Like it's messy, right? It takes a lot of experimentation. I want to say like dancing out, trying something out. How does that feel to you? When I wore a pair of Air Jordans, I felt like my full whole self, right? So that was a step. And then I put on pink and I didn't feel good. So I, kind of receded back a little bit. So it's really trying and having the courage and having the support system around you that allows you to try. Because I think so very often we want to place people in labels and boxes so quickly because for us in society, that makes it neater and cleaner. And we want neat and clean. When development, finding your authenticity, finding your identity, it's a messy process. And making that mess your message, right? Of like, I'm out here trying to find who I am. Not trying to be the popular kid, not trying to fit in. Because in the long run, that's not going to serve me. I'm just going to be more fragile. I'm just going to really foreclose my identity if I try to fit in. I'm going to really experiment. I'm going to try different things. I'm going to really expand my view of identity. So down the road, I have a much deeper sense of knowing who I am. So it really starts with that mindfulness piece, right? And that exploration and that courage of being willing to step outside of those boxes to potentially defy, really stereotypes that you're placed into.
So and I love that, making that mess your message, taking ownership of it. I love that so much. Did you get that support system when you were coming out, when you were making those transformations in your own life?
I did. Yeah.
Good.
I had that support system. I was extremely lucky in the way that my parents were able to accept me. Like I mentioned, it wasn't overnight. I think this is something that it takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And that time, that acceptance piece, its basis is in fear, right? We talk about fear a lot.
Right.
My mother inherently was worried about me because in her mind, being a gay woman in society is harder. Living outside of the gender norms, living outside of the nice, clean labels society presents us, life can be harder. That's what she thought.
Mm-hmm.
Over time, she's realized through many tough lessons that I've taught her is that the way that I show up in the world, this is how I feel beautiful, Adam. So my life is actually better because of it. Yes. Am I at risk sometimes? Of course. Do I have to be careful? Of course. Is the world sometimes a place that can be unaccepting and polarizing? Yeah. But I wake up every morning in my own skin and I need to feel good about myself and I need to love myself to be the best version of myself. And this is the way that I need to show up.
Yeah.
So everything is a cost benefit analysis, so to speak, right? And if you truly want to thrive, and if you want to thrive as an individual, if you want to thrive as part of a community, which we all are, showing up as your authentic self is the first step, Yeah. It's tough to say otherwise. And for some kids, it's life or death, Adam, And that's terrifying to know as a parent now that I could potentially put my child in that position by not listening and not giving them the space to explore their identity.
Yeah, that's why this is such a helpful message for me to hear and for all of our listeners to hear too, because as a parent myself, I have a 16-year-old daughter, 12-year-old son. And so, that those are the ages where these things, these kinds of discussions are coming up. And those are the thoughts that I want to have is as open as I am and as loving as I am. And I love my kids no matter what. I don't want to say the wrong thing or, or that kind of thing. So I'm always very conscious of how to approach those things. So,
Mhm.
on the same regard, what would you say to a parent, or how would you talk to a parent of a child that might be going through some of these transformations?
Many times it's listen. It's say less, listen more.
Mm,
And to provide space to provide space for your child to explore and to learn who they are themselves. So to
mm,
not place labels on them, to not place stereotypes and your own vision of their life onto them. Don't project that onto them. And really listen. I think it's listening to them and helping them to understand that the messiness is part of the process. And you're going to make mistakes. You're going to fall over. You're going to fail. And that's all the beauty of the struggle. So it's almost like go out, like, kiddo, go push your boundaries. What edge can you live on today?
yeah,
Like what challenged you today? Those are the
yeah,
questions that you can ask. What made you feel uncomfortable? How did you lean into it? And I've been really playing with this word now, Adam, the word trust,
mhm,
because I think trust is the highest form of love. And when Luna was born, I thought, like, what do I want to say to her when she comes out of the womb? Like, I wanted to be really purposeful with this. And the 3 words that I came up with was, I trust you. And I wanted to say, I trust you because I think trust is love without control. And I want to try to surrender and allow Luna to be the narrator of her own life, and it's so hard to do, isn't it? Like, it's
it
so
is.
hard to do. But I want to trust that she knows herself way better than I'll ever know her. And if she doesn't today, then she will tomorrow because of what she's gone through today. So
Hmm.
I think it's, as a parent, it's that surrender, it's that trust in your child. And damn, it's going to be hard and it's going to be painful for the parent. And you're going to have to sit next to them in times when they're crying and sad and they feel rejected. And you have to try your best not to take that away from them.
Yeah. Now that's so powerful, because I mean, going back to the authenticity piece, that when you show up authentically with whomever you are, it's so much more beautiful. I mean, it's just so beautiful
Mm-hmm.
when people do that. And as a parent, it is hard to maybe it may not be hard to say I trust you to a child, but to actually put that trust in a child, there's
Mm-hmm.
this deep drive for most of us, and maybe it's just me, but to think we know better and
Yeah.
push that. And so that's really, really helpful. And I want to be respectful of your time on this, and I want to move on to kind of the other transformations you've made, the other rising above of adversity, because I know in your
Mhm.
soccer career you did a lot of that too. You
Yeah.
faced a lot of adversity, and this is the amazing thing to me, is that you played in a sport where the best athletes in the world play in. I mean, soccer is just, and especially
Mhm.
women's soccer, you've
Yep.
proven that, especially on the American front, the women are way better than the men. At least that's from what I've seen. That's right.
You got it
Um,
right, Adam.
but don't tell the men I said that, by the way. No, but but there obviously pay was terrible. I heard your story about how you traveled the world, you slept in,
Yeah.
you almost had to live like a homeless person.
Yeah.
What led you to continue going down that path? I mean, obviously there's a passion there, but what was that,
Yeah.
what was the drive?
I fall back on this concept that with a high enough purpose, you can get through any pain.
Yeah.
And I think that my purpose of becoming a professional soccer player was so deep in my soul that I was willing to go through so much bullshit, Adam, to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And you're referencing a time when I lived in Japan. I lived on like the 21st floor of a Tokyo apartment, was sleeping on a futon and traveling like an hour and a half to get to practice and joining a team that didn't speak a lick of English. So there were, I played on 7 different teams in 5 different countries. So there were so many situations where I pushed myself way outside of my comfort zone because of my purpose. And the purpose wasn't even necessarily of like kicking a ball into a goal. I think that is a trivial way of thinking of it. I think the purpose was to be the best version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I was always inspired by the women's national team, and I was on the youth national teams growing up. So I could see it. I had that vision of who I could become. And I had Mia Hamm, I had Brandi Chastain, I had Brianna Scurry. I watched the 99 Women's World Cup. I watched Brandi Chastain rip off her shirt after hitting the winning PK. And it was like, there it was. Like, that's who I could become. Mm-hmm. And there was no higher purpose for me, not just on the field, but look at these women and what they're accomplishing off the field, right?
Right.
The equal pay, teaming up with Billie Jean King, right? Fighting for their rights, putting their career at risk to make the path behind them even better for the generations that come forward. There is no higher purpose. There's no greater definition of success than living in your purpose authentically and making the path easier for someone else who comes behind you. So it was this was the most socially significant team in history, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. And now that we've actually accomplished equal pay, the ripple effects, they keep going. And so I was willing to go through so much to attempt to be a person like that. And I knew that the path, even if I didn't get to be a national team player, even if I didn't reach the highest pinnacle in a World Cup or an Olympics, it was still worth it to me. And I think that's what always drove me. And then as an out, proud, queer professional athlete, I was getting feedback from fans, from other athletes of how important it was to show up as my authentic self and how impactful it was on their lives. I would have people come up to me after games and not say, "Hey, Joe, great game, great goal." They would look me in the eye and say, "Thank you for being who you are. Mm-hmm. You gave me the strength to come out to my parents. You allowed me to see myself in a different light," right? To see myself as worthy of love and acceptance. And that is the greatest compliment anyone can ever receive, Adam. So again, I kept getting this incredible feedback, and that growth and just the platform I had to expand the definition of what a woman can look like, the platform that I had to speak for those who are forced into silence. Like, what a privilege that was. Mm-hmm. And I think I was able to look at my career with a step back and to see that platform that I had. And it was a beautiful thing to feel like I could stand on that and find my own voice.
Wow. That's so powerful because, I mean, you are doing something that, for most perspectives, it's like, why would you keep doing that if there's so much adversity, if you're not getting the equal pay, if you're not getting this, but the purpose that you're living with was so much more powerful than the pay, than the pain and all of that you're talking about. And the difference that you're making in people's lives. And I'll say this, not just for people that might be, questioning whether they're maybe they're gay or straight or anything like that, but for people that are just genuinely wanting to live authentically and mm-hmm. in some way, it's a powerful, powerful message. And how, and so it sounds like we got to a point where we achieved equal pay for women. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
It was signed into law in 2022.
Great. Also pretty recently. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And were you still part of that movement when that happened?
So loosely, because I was a member of the national team and I have 9 international caps. And in just this past winter, my wife and I were able to celebrate equal pay up in New York. It was like a red carpet gala of all the alumni, of all the women who have ever played with the national team, dating back to 1985, which is the first iteration of the team. So all of us in one room, and and my wife was pregnant with our child. So, to know that Luna was a girl, and here she was surrounded by this like incredible sorority of badasses who have absolutely changed the world. Mm-hmm. It gives you perspective on life, and it gives you perspective on what's really important and what all of these women have gone through in order to reach this higher level. So I was a part of it, and it's been a huge part of my life.
That's incredible. Yeah. And you've said that, I know you said in the past that you feel like you have a PhD in women's soccer. What does that mean to you? And what were some of the biggest lessons that you learned throughout that experience?
So I've written a book, Raising Tomorrow's Champions, where we interviewed over 100 of the greatest soccer players of all time. So former members of the women's national team. Mm-hmm. And what was interesting, Adam, is through that process, it was almost like a DNA test, right? It was almost like a 23andMe for me personally, because there's only been about 250, give or take, women in the history who have ever put on a national team jersey. Mm-hmm. 250, that's it.
Wow.
And to find the common themes of who has been able to make it to that level, you realize that you share certain things in common. And the greatest, the ones who are able to make it to the highest level, they have that deep sense of purpose that allows them to get through the pain. Because the adversity is inevitable, Adam. Like, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when, right? When are you going to get punched in the face? And the people who are able to pick themselves back up again and use that as a catalyst for their success are the ones that make it to the highest level. So when you play a sport has such a unique environment, because it is an environment where you can publicly suffer and you can publicly go through failure. Mm-hmm. Think about that. Like, that sounds really scary, but at the same time, it's the truth. It's like one of the very unique environments where around other people, you are falling down, you are losing, you may not get what you want, you may get benched. And all the while you are having to swallow kind of your own pride and ego to serve the higher purpose of the team. And there's just so many lessons that the sport teaches you in that public suffering and failure. And you build this sense of resiliency, right? Mm-hmm. I laundry listed all of my failures. I have the deepest sense of resiliency, not because of the goals that I scored or the games that I won, but because of the times that I rose from the ashes like a phoenix, right? And that's what gives me this unshakable sense of confidence in who I am. Because I've been through hell and back, and I am here to smile through it and to know that I can get through whatever life throws at me right now. Mm-hmm. And that's why sport is so powerful. And that's why I really advocate for parents to allow their children to play sports, because there's really no other way to develop those types of skills, especially for young women who are so very often told to shut up, sit in a corner, cross your legs, be quiet, don't compete, be careful, be safe. Don't hurt anybody, right? Like, sport is a time where you can go after it. And so it really develops so many life lessons that take you through and make you successful. And there's a reason why so many, business C-suite women have played sports at a higher level.
Yeah, that's I mean, at least from my experience, and I certainly can't relate from the female perspective, but at least from my perspective, I was not an athlete growing up. I was terrible at ball sports. I really just, and it was likely, and maybe I'll get into the genetics question in a second, see if athletics is a genetics thing or not, or from your opinion. But but coming up, I was just not an athlete, but it wasn't until I found that passion for something, which for me was triathlon later on in my 30s. Mm-hmm. But the way that it helps level you up in so many ways, like building your confidence, building your community, building that community of support, it's amazing. And so it took me a long time to realize what you did, but you're absolutely right. And I can imagine.
Get it. You're in a sport where you can stop at any minute, right? Because you're the only person who's driving that bike or running that race or swimming that swim, right? And you can stop at any moment because you're in a lot of pain, I'm assuming.
Oh, yeah.
You're still going. So it's mentally, that is so shaping, right? For an individual to be able to feel that pain and have the purpose high enough that they're willing to go through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then every time that happens, your comfort zone kind of expands, right? And that's the beauty of molting, is that every time we molt, we become bigger and better versions of ourselves. And that means our comfort zone expands.
Right.
And I have a really cool visual model of molting, which I'll show right now. Which puts it into perspective in terms of our comfort zone and the 4 phases, which I won't draw in. We can save that for our next podcast, Adam.
Definitely. Yeah, there's got to be a part 2 for sure.
This is the visual model of molting, right? This is your comfort zone expanding each time you molt. and it's a never ending process. So it just keeps going and going and going and going.
So for those who are listening, it's a spiral, really.
Yes.
Like if you picture a spiral, it just keeps going outward and outward. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. And gradually, as it expands outward, I'm guessing that the edges are where we're starting to shed our skin. Yes. And then we're starting to get more and you do it
again. And it's like a loop, and you do it again, and you do it again, right?
That's such a great analogy. I love that. For those for yourself, what does flow mean to you? So when you're thinking about getting into flow, and you've certainly been there. I mean, you've been in a sport where you have to experience that. What does flow mean to you?
So now I still, I'm a parent now. I'm a new-time parent. I work full time. I have a ton of responsibilities. I still get the opportunity to play soccer, Adam. And when I step on that field, you can never take the game out of the girl. It is the utter state of flow where there is no thought. There is no care in my brain. It is just me, complete joy on that soccer ball with my friends playing the game that I love. So for me, good thoughts are good, bad thoughts are bad, but no thought is best. And the flow state is like really your optimal performance, where we silence our inner critic and we are 100% in the present moment. Mm-hmm. Because as we know, being in the present moment really is the entryway to deep focus and the entryway to deep learning. So it's like a deep focus in the present moment. That is the flow state.
So deep focus, present in the moment. I love that. Mm-hmm. That's so good. And now maybe one of the most important questions for us Americans: is it soccer or football?
It's both.
Okay, good.
So if you're traveling internationally, it's going to be football. But if you're here in the States, it's going to be soccer. So understand, have some cultural understanding, and call it the right thing where you are.
Sure, understood. Yeah, I know it's a silly question, but I think it's important, obviously. So I appreciate you clarifying.
Yeah, of course.
And so, what's next for Joanna? What are you up to next? Where can people find you?
So Adam and I are in a grad program together. So we're really working on up-leveling our speaking ability. So that's I'm a global keynote speaker. I'm a performance coach, a leadership coach, and these are things that I live, eat, and breathe. I am incredibly passionate about it. So people can find me on LinkedIn, which I love to share concepts, ideas, have conversations. My website is joannalohman.com. You can hire me to speak anywhere around the world. And yeah, those are the two best spots on the Instagram. I'm Joanna Lohman 15. So
all right.
All of those ways of finding me. And honestly, Adam, I love having conversations. I'm open-minded. I want to grow as part of the molting process. So it's been a pleasure to be able to speak to you and to learn from you, and really giving me the gift of having this platform.
Well, it's been my honor, and it's been such a thrill just in the short time I've known you to see how you've evolved and how you've grown and continue to. And hearing your message is just incredibly inspiring, and inspires me to become a better person. And I'm grateful for it. And so Joanna Lohman 15 on Instagram. So 15, that's your retired number, right?
Yes, it
awesome.
is.
That's fantastic. And you're the first or only person on the Spirit to have their number retired?
Both right now. That's incredible. But I'm sure there's going to be many people who are going to have their jerseys retired in the future. So it was an amazing honor. And it was their first ever Pride night. So it was a really special night for me and my family.
That's great. Well, congratulations for that, and for everything that you've achieved, for the message you're delivering. Like I said at the beginning, I believe that you're going to inspire millions if you haven't already. Thank you for the message you're sharing. Thank you for joining me today. It's been an honor. And thank you to the audience. Thank you all out there for listening in. Find Joanna at joannalohman.com and on LinkedIn, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Flow Over Fear podcast. If you'd like to learn more about getting into flow and learn the foundations of flow, I have a free video series on my website at www.adamcliffordhill.com called The Foundations of Flow. Feel free to go there and download it and start your journey to rising above fear and achieving greater flow in your life. And if you like this episode, and I'm guessing you did if you stuck around for this long, then please do me a favor and hit the subscribe button, and you will receive notifications when I have new interviews, new recaps, and new trainings that pop up on YouTube. Thanks again for joining us.